The father took a bite of rice with his son's golden spoon. The next second, he gained all of his son's memories. It turned out his real son had swapped identities with a rich kid long ago. Seeing that his son had abandoned them for wealth and status, the father was shocked. Then he saw a scene of Jake arguing with his son. But Jake had firmly chosen them. When the father found out, he broke down in tears. The next day, the father went to find his son at his company. He wanted to have a nice meal with him. He found out his son already had a dad with him. The father felt very disappointed. The father knew Jake and his son had swapped lives. Out of guilt toward Jake, the father gave him an expensive suit. Jake was very happy. He suddenly noticed that the father couldn't bring himself to buy nice clothes for himself. Jake felt deeply moved. On his way out, the father called out to stop his son. He thought about how Jack had chosen them unconditionally.
세상에서 제일 좋은 우리 엄마. 세상에서 제일 좋은 우리 아빠. 절대 잃고 싶지 않아서요.
The father was deeply touched and stepped forward to give Jake a tight hug to thank him for choosing them, but he still felt full of guilt toward Jake. From then on, the family was just as happy as before. The son still stayed close to them as always. The father moved, patted Jake's head. The father decided to live a good life with him.
별나 신경 없어. 우리 아들하고 잘 살면 돼.
That day, the father came to see his real son one last time. He talked about his son's childhood dream. Jim thought it was to become rich, but his father said it was to become a poet. Jim froze for a moment. Then the father took out a poem his son had written as a kid and read it out loud, word by word. Since childhood, Jim had always been gentle and kind, and his father had never forgotten that. He gave the poem to Jim, just hoping his son wouldn't forget who he used to be and would always remember the gentle, kind person he once was. Jim lowered his head in guilt. Just then, Jim got a phone call and rushed off. It turned out his uncle had just gotten out of prison and had come specifically to take revenge on Jim. Just as he pulled out a knife to stab Jake, the father showed up just in time and took the blow for him. To save his son, the father kept holding onto the man's hand. After stabbing him, the man panicked and ran off. Jim rushed over to his father's side and saw that he'd been stabbed several times. In his final moments, the father called out his son's name, still worried about whether he was hurt. Only then did Jim realize his father had known everything all along. The father blamed himself for not recognizing him at first.
무슨 일을 못 산다. 너 사랑해.
And then his father was gone forever. Jim broke down and cried his heart out.